I stood barefoot on the dock at 2:13 a.m., watching the moonlight ripple across Lake Martin like broken glass, and read the text that ended 22 years of marriage in 8 little words. Tell Lorraine the lake house is officially mine now. Face throwing a kiss. The message was from my cousin Shayla, sent to a group chat with 4 of our aunts and uncles, the same ones who'd been voting on who would inherit Grandma's cabin after she passed. Only I hadn't known there was a vote. And the kiss-of-face emoji told me exactly how Shayla had won. My husband, Derek, was asleep in the city, 2 hours away, thinking I was just having a quiet weekend with family like I did every August. He didn't know I'd come early to open the cabin, air it out, stock the fridge with the peach tea he liked. He didn't know I'd found the second phone in his truck console the week before. He didn't know I'd been watching the pieces fall together like a puzzle I never asked to solve. But Shayla knew. She always knew how to take what wasn't hers and smile while she did it. I'm Lorraine Denise Carter, 44 years old, high school guidance counselor, mama to 2 teenagers who were with their daddy this weekend, and the granddaughter who'd spent every summer of my life on this exact dock learning how to bait a hook and how to keep a promise. Grandma's cabin, 3 bedrooms, wraparound porch, tin roof that sang when it rained, was the one place on earth that still smelled like her. Lemon verbena, wood smoke, and the faint sweetness of the peach cobbler she baked in the same Pyrex dish for 50 years. She died last fall, peaceful, in the back bedroom with the window open so she could hear the water. Before she closed her eyes she squeezed my hand and whispered, "Take care of the lake house, baby. It's yours. Always was." I believed her. I was the one who painted the shutters every spring. I was the one who paid the taxes when the family fund ran low. I was the one who brought my babies here to teach them the same lessons Grandma taught me. And now my cousin, blood of my blood, had slept with my husband to steal it from me. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone in the lake like the old Lorraine might have. I just sat down on the edge of the dock, let my feet dangle in the cold water, and started planning. Because some fires you don't start with gasoline. You start them with truth, and you let them burn slow enough for everybody to feel the heat. The reunion was in 3 weeks. The whole family would be here, aunts, uncles, cousins, second cousins, Grandma's old church friends. Shayla was planning to announce her victory with champagne and a new sign for the mailbox that already had her last name on it. She thought she'd won. I was going to let her keep thinking that. Right up until the moment I took everything back. But first, I needed proof that would stand up in daylight. And I needed to decide what kind of woman I was going to be when the smoke cleared. Before everything cracked open, summers at the lake house were the heartbeat of our family. Every June, the minute school let out, I'd load my kids, Malik, 16, and Maya, 14, into the Suburban with duffel bags, fishing rods, and a cooler full of Grandma's frozen peach cobbler I'd learned to make exactly the way she did. Derek would follow on Fridays after work, pulling his boat behind his truck, grinning like a man who still couldn't believe this place was ours to come home to. The cabin sat on a little cove where the water stayed calm enough for the kids to learn to ski. Pine trees crowded close, and at night the only sounds were crickets and the soft slap of waves against the dock. Inside, nothing had changed since the 70s, knotty pine walls, mismatched quilts, a kitchen table scarred from decades of fish cleaning and card games. Grandma's Bible still sat open on the side table to whatever psalm she'd been reading when she passed. Weekends were ritual. Mornings, coffee on the porch while the kids slept, Derek's arm around my shoulders, planning nothing more complicated than who was cooking supper. Afternoons, swimming until our fingers pruned, Maya begging me to French braid her hair wet, Malik trying to outrun the boat on the tube. Evenings, charcoal grill smoking, music low on the old radio, cousins dropping by with lawn chairs and gossip. Shayla was always part of it. She's my mama's sister's daughter, 2 years younger, pretty in that loud way that makes people look twice. Growing up, we were thick as thieves. Same schools, same church pew, same summers at the lake. When her mama died young, Grandma took her in for whole seasons. We shared a bedroom, secrets, dreams. I was the steady one, she was the spark. People said we balanced each other. After college she moved to Atlanta, married rich, divorced richer, and started showing up to family things in designer sundresses and new jewelry. But the lake house still pulled her back every summer like gravity. She and Derek had always teased each other the way cousins-in-law do, harmless, I thought. He called her Hollywood, she called him country boy. I laughed along because that's what you do when trust is thick and love is easy. I never saw the shift coming. Maybe it was the year Malik started driving and the house felt quieter. Maybe it was turning 40 and feeling the years settle in my hips. Maybe it was Derek working late on Fridays and coming home smelling like someone else's perfume, something expensive I didn't wear. I told myself marriage has seasons. I told myself the cabin was our anchor. I told myself a lot of things that sound foolish now. But the truth is, for a long time the lake house was the one place I could still hear Grandma's laugh in the wind chimes, still feel Derek's hand slip into mine like the first time he kissed me at 17, still watch my children grow tall against the same doorframe where I once stood. It was sacred. And sacred things are exactly what some people like to break. It began with a smell I couldn't place. One Friday in early July, Derek came in from work later than usual. I was folding towels on the kitchen island when he kissed my cheek, quick, distracted, and headed straight for the shower. That wasn't new, construction sites are hot. But the scent that trailed behind him wasn't sawdust or sweat. It was something sweet and floral, expensive, like the perfume counters at Lenox Square. I stood there with a damp towel in my hands and felt the first tiny crack in the foundation. I told myself it was nothing. Clients wear perfume. Co-workers hug goodbye. I was being paranoid. But the crack widened. A week later, I was cleaning out his truck to take the kids to the lake early. Under the passenger seat I found a receipt from the Whitley Hotel in Buckhead, one night, 2 months ago, $412 after taxes. The date was a Thursday. He'd told me he was overnighting in Birmingham for a supplier meeting. I sat in the driveway with the engine running and that little white slip of paper burning a hole in my palm. I still didn't want to believe. So I started paying attention the way only a woman who's scared to know the truth can. His phone stayed face down now. He took showers the minute he walked in. He smiled less when the kids talked about the lake house weekends coming up. Then came the family group chat. Every summer the aunts and uncles started a thread about cabin maintenance fund and who was bringing what to the reunion. This year Shayla suddenly took charge, posting paint swatches for the porch, talking about new furniture, asking everyone to vote on whether the next generation should update the deed for fairness. I thought it was just Shayla being Shayla, always needing to be the bride at every wedding. Until Aunt Claudette texted me privately. "Baby, did you agree to put the cabin in Shayla's name? She says you'll talked and you're good with it." I stared at my phone so long the screen went black. I had never talked to Shayla about the deed. Grandma's will was clear, the cabin passed to me outright, with a family use clause so nobody could ever be locked out. I called Shayla. She answered bright and breezy. "Hey, cousin. Excited for August? What's this about the deed?" I kept my voice level, counselor calm. A tiny pause, just long enough. "Oh, just planning ahead. Grandma's will is old-fashioned. We all use the place. I figured we could make it joint so nobody feels left out. Derek said y'all were fine with it." Derek had never mentioned it. I hung up and felt the lake water rise in my chest, cold, dark, pulling. That night I waited until the kids were asleep and asked Derek point blank. He laughed, too loud, too fast. "Shayla's dreaming again." I told her no way. "The cabin's yours, baby. Always has been." He kissed my forehead and rolled over. I lay awake listening to the quiet house and the louder quiet inside me. 2 days later I found the second phone. It was in the pocket of his work jacket, an old burner, cheap flip phone I'd never seen. I only found it because Maya asked me to grab his tape measure. The phone buzzed while I held it, one new text. From a contact saved as S. "Can't wait to christen our bedroom at the lake. Fire." I opened the thread with fingers that didn't feel like mine. Hundreds of messages. Photos. Plans for the reunion weekend when they'd tell everyone the cabin was theirs now. The last message from Derek, sent yesterday. She still has no idea. By August it'll all be ours. I sat on the garage floor among paint cans and Christmas decorations and read until my eyes burned. My husband and my cousin. My marriage and my sanctuary. Both stolen in the same breath. I didn't cry yet. I just closed the phone, put it back exactly where I found it, and started breathing slow the way I teach panicked teenagers to breathe when the world gets too big. Because the reunion was 23 days away. And I had work to do. I didn't sleep for 3 nights straight after finding the burner phone. I moved through the house like a ghost, making pancakes, signing permission slips, smiling when Malik asked if Dad was coming to the lake early this year. Every smile felt borrowed from a woman who no longer existed. On the 4th night I waited until Derek was snoring, slipped out of bed, and took both phones, his real one and the burner, to the back porch. The moon was full and merciless. I sat in Grandma's old rocker, wrapped in one of her quilts, and read every message twice. They started innocent enough, flirty jokes at last year's reunion. Then turned hungry. Then cruel. Shayla, Lorraine still thinks that cabin belongs to her bloodline. Wait till she sees whose bed I'm warming in it. Derek, she'll get over it. Always does. Shayla, you sure she won't fight? Derek, baby, she's too busy being perfect to notice we're already gone. There were pictures I can't unsee. Plans to have the locks changed the week after the reunion. Talk of selling my grandmother's dining table, the one her daddy built by hand, because Shayla wanted something more modern. The worst was a voice note from Shayla, time-stamped 2 days after Grandma's funeral. Tell your wife thanks for planning everything. Made it real easy for us to start planning our future in her house. I played it on loop until the battery died, rocking so hard the chair creaked like it might break. Then I did the thing I swore I'd never do. I drove to the lake house alone at 3 a.m., let myself in with the key under the ceramic frog, and sat at Grandma's table with both phones and my laptop. I forwarded every text, every photo, every hotel receipt to an email only I could access. I downloaded the call logs. I took screenshots until my fingers went numb. When the sun came up I was still sitting there, coffee cold, eyes dry because the tears hadn't decided to fall yet. I called in sick to work, first time in 12 years. Told the kids I had a migraine and needed quiet. Then I started making lists the way I do when a student is in crisis. Facts in one column, feelings in another. Facts. Affair ongoing at least 14 months. Shayla forged emails from family members voting to transfer the deed. Derek signed as witness on the forged documents. Grandma's will was ironclad. Any transfer required my signature and a notary who'd known her for 20 years. They'd planned to pressure me at the reunion. Feelings. I wrote them in red pen until the page looked bloody. When Derek woke up that afternoon, Saturday, no work, he found me in the kitchen making sweet tea like everything was normal. He kissed the back of my neck. You feeling better, baby? I turned, smiled the smile I use on parents who don't want to hear their child is failing, and said, much. Actually, I think I'll head to the lake early this year. Get it ready for everybody. Something flickered across his face, panic or excitement, I couldn't tell. Cool, he said, too casual. Need help loading anything? No, I answered, stirring the sugar slow. I've got everything I need. That night I packed 2 bags. One for the clothes I'd wear at the reunion. One for the printed evidence, time-stamped and bound in a black folder like a funeral program. I kissed my sleeping children, left a note that Mommy would be back Sunday night, and drove to the lake under a sky so dark it felt like judgment. When I pulled up, the porch light was on, motion sensor. For a second I thought I saw Grandma standing there in her housecoat, arms crossed, waiting for me to do what needed doing. I whispered into the night, I won't let them take you from me. Then I went inside, locked the door, and started preparing the screen. Because some truths are too big for words. Sometimes you have to show people exactly who they married. And exactly who they raised. I gave them 19 more days of thinking they'd won. 19 days of Shayla posting countdowns on the family chat, 2 weeks till our lake house reveal, champagne glasses, house with flower. 19 days of Derek kissing me goodbye in the mornings like nothing was rotting between us. 19 days of me smiling, cooking supper, braiding Maya's hair, and printing every damning screenshot on thick cream paper that felt like wedding invitations to a funeral. I moved like a woman with a purpose nobody could see. I rented a discreet projector and a roll-down screen from the AV company the school uses for graduations. I paid cash. I tested it at 2 a.m. on the back porch so the light wouldn't wake the pines. I called Aunt Claudette, Uncle Roy, Cousin Denise, the three who actually sit on the family trust, and asked them, quiet, to meet me at the cabin 2 hours before the reunion started. Told them I had important paperwork about Grandma's estate. They came without questions, they'd known me since I was in diapers. When they saw the forged emails, Shayla using their names, Derek's digital signature, Aunt Claudette started crying into her sweet tea. Uncle Roy's jaw went so tight I heard it pop. Denise just looked at me and said, "Whatever you need, baby. We ride at dawn." I told them my plan. They didn't flinch. The morning of the reunion I rose before the sun, brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and hung white fairy lights along the porch rafters like it was Christmas instead of Judgment Day. I wore Grandma's favorite coral sundress, the one she called her happy color, and the pearl earrings Derek gave me on our 10th anniversary. I wanted to look like the Lorraine they thought they knew when they walked in. Cars started pulling up at noon, coolers, lawn chairs, kids running wild. Shayla arrived in a white convertible, hair blowing, sunglasses big as saucers, Derek right behind her in his truck like a faithful dog. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. She looped her arm through his as they walked up the steps, laughing about something I wasn't supposed to hear. I greeted every single person with a hug and a smile. I handed Shayla a glass of peach tea like nothing was wrong. She drank it. At 4 o'clock, when the sun sat low and golden over the water and everybody was full of barbecue and ready for announcements, I stood on the porch and clinked a spoon against my glass. "Y'all, before we cut the cake, I have a little presentation about Grandma's legacy and where the lake house goes from here. Won't take but 10 minutes. Shayla beamed, thinking it was her moment. Derek squeezed her hand. I rolled down the screen I'd hidden behind the ferns, dimmed the fairy lights, and hit play. The first slide was simple white text on black. For Grandma. For truth. For every promise ever broken on this porch. Then the messages began. Every text. Every photo, faces blurred for the children's sake, but nobody in that yard was confused. Every forged email with timestamps and headers. Every voice note, Shayla's laugh crystal clear. Tell your wife thanks for planning everything. I narrated nothing. I just let their own words do the talking. The yard went so quiet I could hear the lake breathing. Shayla's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the planks, peach tea bleeding across the wood like a wound. Derek turned the color of old ash. When the last slide faded, Grandma's real will, page highlighted in yellow, to my granddaughter Lorraine Denise Carter, the lake house and all its memories, now and forever, I turned the projector off and faced them. Soft. Calm. Deadly. The trust has already voided every forged document. The deed stays exactly where Grandma put it. With me. Y'all are welcome to visit anytime, same as always. But the locks won't be changing. And the sign on the mailbox stays Carter. Aunt Claudette stood up first. Second the motion. All in favor. Every hand went up except 2. Shayla tried to speak, something about misunderstanding, about love, about mistakes. Her voice cracked like thin ice. Nobody looked at her. Derek started toward me, hands open. Lorraine, baby. I stepped back 1 step, just enough. You don't get to call me baby anymore. You lost that privilege somewhere between her sheets and my grandmother's will. Then I did the thing that broke him clean in two. I looked at my children, standing at the edge of the crowd, eyes wide, Maya crying silent tears, and opened my arms. They ran to me. The yard exhaled. Some people started gathering their things. Some stayed seated, too stunned to move. Shayla's mother, my Aunt Marlene, walked over, took her daughter by the elbow, and led her to the car without a word. Derek stood alone in the middle of the yard while the sun set behind him like the world was closing a curtain on the man I used to love. I didn't gloat. I just turned the music back on low, some old Earl Green grandma loved, and started passing cake like it was any other reunion. Because the fire had done its work. And the house still stood. The reunion ended quieter than any in 40 years. Cars rolled out slow, headlights cutting through the dusk like they were leaving a funeral instead of a celebration. Nobody played music on the way down the dirt road. Nobody honked goodbye. Shayla left in the passenger seat of her mama's Bic, face turned to the window so nobody could see her cry. Derek stood by his truck for a long time, keys dangling, until Uncle Roy walked over, took the keys gentle but firm, and said, "Sleep it off at my place tonight, son. Some things you don't drive away from." He went without a fight. The next morning the story was already spreading faster than kudzu. Miss Loretta at the beauty shop told Mrs. Henderson, who told the choir, who told the deacons. By Sunday service half the congregation knew. Sister Clara stood up during testimony time and said, "I just thank God for a woman who handled ugly with grace and kept her grandma's legacy clean." The amens were loud enough to rattle the stained glass. People picked sides without me asking. Shayla's styling clients in Atlanta started canceling. Word travels when mamas talk. The country club she loved bragging about quietly revoked her guest privileges. Her new boyfriend, some lawyer twice her age, stopped returning calls once screenshots landed in his inbox from an anonymous number. Denise swore it wasn't her. Derek's construction partners moved him off the big lakefront jobs for family reasons. Men he'd known since Little League stopped inviting him to Saturday golf. His own daddy wouldn't take his calls. The children and I stayed at the lake house for 2 straight weeks. I unplugged the landline, turned my phone off, and let the water wash the smoke out of our clothes. Malik fished until his arms hurt. Maya and I painted the porch rockers coral again, Grandma's happy color. We cooked breakfast for supper and cried when we felt like it and laughed when we didn't expect to. One night Maya asked, voice small, "Are you and Daddy done for good?" I pulled her into my lap like she was 6 instead of 14 and said, "Some things break in a way glue can't fix, baby. But love doesn't stop just because people do." She cried into my shoulder until my shirt was soaked, and I held her like Grandma used to hold me. Derek showed up on a Wednesday with a duffel bag and red eyes, begging to talk. I met him on the dock at sunset, kids inside doing homework. "I'm sorry" was all he could say for the first 5 minutes. Then the excuses came, lonely, drunk, stupid, thought it didn't mean anything. I listened until he ran out of words. Then I told him quiet, "You didn't just cheat on me, Derek. You tried to steal my safe place. My children's safe place. Grandma's safe place. There's no sorry big enough for that." He cried then, ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs. I didn't comfort him. I just said, "File whatever papers you need to. The kids will always have their daddy. But this house, this marriage, and whatever we used to be, you lost the right to touch any of it." He left the next morning. The divorce papers came 30 days later. Shayla tried once to call from a new number. I let it ring until voicemail picked up, then blocked it without listening. Some bridges you don't repair. You just let the river take the ashes. By fall, the cabin was quieter than it had ever been, and louder too, full of new memories we were brave enough to make without them. And the town, our big, messy, loving family, closed ranks around the 3 of us like we were the only blood that mattered. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from a judge. It comes from a porch full of people who finally see the truth and decide whose side the light falls on. Winter came soft that year, the kind of quiet cold that makes the lake look like polished glass and the pines stand guard like they're keeping secrets for you. I turned 45 in December. Denise and the kids threw me a little party on the porch, string lights, store-bought cake, a playlist of Grandma's favorites. Malik gave me a hand-carved sign for the mailbox, Carter's Cove, estimated 1958. Maya wrapped a new quilt in brown paper. She'd sewn it herself from Grandma's old blouses and some of my favorite t-shirts of hers that still smelled like her. I hung it on the back of the porch rocker and cried happy tears into it while the fire crackled. Derek moved into a small apartment near his job. He shows up every other weekend for the kids, on time, sober, eyes on the floor. We speak in calm sentences about pickup times and orthodontist bills. The kids still call him Daddy. I still call him Derek. That's the new shape of love, smaller, careful, but still breathing. Some nights he sits on the tailgate of his truck after dropping them off and stares at the cabin like he's trying to remember how he ever belonged here. I let him sit. I don't wave. I just close the curtains and turn the music up a little. Shayla disappeared from every group chat, every holiday dinner invitation. Last I heard she'd moved to Charlotte and was working retail under her middle name. I hope she's learning how heavy stolen things feel when you have to carry them alone. And me. I did 4 things that stitched me back together. First, I started waking before sunrise and walking the half-mile loop around the cove every morning, no headphones, just birds and my own breath. By spring I could run it without stopping, lungs burning clean. Second, I said yes to dinner with Marcus Whitmore, the quiet architect who built half the new houses on the lake and always asked how my day was like he really wanted to know. He never pushed, never asked about the divorce papers, just showed up with good wine and better conversation until one night under the fairy lights he kissed me soft and slow, like a question I finally knew the answer to. Third, I turned the master bedroom, the one with the big window facing the water, into my own. New mattress, new linens the color of sunrise, Grandma's quilt folded at the foot. I hung a photo of me and the kids on the first day we came back after the reunion, arms around each other, smiling like we'd won something bigger than a house. Fourth, I forgave. Not all at once. Not pretty. Some days it was a choice I had to make fresh with my coffee. I stopped speaking their names with poison in my mouth. I let the kids have sleepovers at Derek's new place without checking the clock every 10 minutes. I prayed for Shayla on the days I could manage it, quick prayers for mercy and mirrors. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant I wasn't renting them space in my peace anymore. The biggest healing came from the children. Malik started calling the cabin Mom's fortress. Maya wrote me letters on notebook paper slipped under my door. Dear Mom. Thank you for keeping us safe when everything felt broken. I love you bigger than the lake. Love, your girl Maya. I kept every one in Grandma's old biscuit tin on the top shelf. By summer the house felt different. I painted the kitchen the soft yellow Grandma always wanted. I replaced the scarred dining table with a new one, bigger, to hold more love. I turned Shayla's old bedroom into a reading nook with a daybed and shelves full of books and the sound of water always close. Marcus started staying weekends. He grills fish while the kids kayak, and we eat on the porch talking about everything and nothing. He never spends the night when the children are here, not yet. We're walking the slow road, the one with stop signs and respect, because I learned fast ain't always safe. One Sunday in September he helped me hang the new porch swing, wider, painted coral. When it was done he pulled me into it, wrapped a blanket around us both, and said, "This place feels like church now." I laughed, soft. It always was. We just had to clean house. That night after the kids were asleep, I stood on the dock where I once read that kiss-a-face text and felt, nothing but wind and water and the steady beat of a heart that had learned how to keep going. The cabin was mine, paid for, deed clean, memories scrubbed of poison. The children had 2 homes and one mama who would fight the world to keep them whole. Marcus had a drawer in my dresser and a promise I was finally ready to keep. Some victories you don't shout. You just live them out loud, day by day, until the house forgets there was ever smoke. And on quiet nights when the moon is full and the water is glass and Marcus's arm is around me while we watch the stars come out one by one, I whisper thank you. To Grandma. To my babies. To every person who handed me a shoulder or a prayer when I thought I'd never stand again. And sometimes, only sometimes, to the woman I used to be, who took every punch and still grew up kind. Because she's the reason I know how to love without shrinking. And she's the reason I'll never let anyone make me small again. Come on up here, sugar, there's room and the cushions are still warm from the sun. If you've walked this whole dusty road with me, from the night that Kiss-a-Face text lit up the dock, to the moment the projector screen went dark and the lake finally exhaled, then you already know this story was never really about a cabin. It was about the one place you think nobody can touch. And what happens when the people closest to you try to take it anyway? I've had so many of y'all pour your hearts out in my messages after the other stories, some crying in grocery store parking lots, some typing with shaking hands, some just needing to hear another woman whisper, yes, that happened to me too. And every single time, I go right back to that porch full of family watching their own words burn on a screen, realizing some fires don't destroy a home, they purify it. So let me say it plain, the way Grandma would've over coffee and pound cake. You are allowed to protect what's sacred to you. You are allowed to stop smiling when someone is stealing your peace. You are allowed to gather every sharp thing they threw and hand it back to them in front of God and everybody. Some of you asked, Miss Lorraine, was the reunion worth it? All those phones out, all those gasps, did it heal anything? Darling, healing doesn't always feel soft. Sometimes it feels like standing barefoot on the dock at 2 a.m. deciding whether to drown or to fight. But yes, it was worth it. Not because they lost, though mercy, they did. Because I found out who I was when the masks came off. Some of you asked about Derek. We're polite now. We sit side by side at parent-teacher nights and cheer at Malik's games. The love didn't die, it just moved out and took its boots off at the door. The children have 2 homes and 1 heart that belongs to both their parents. That's enough. Some of you asked about Shayla. I don't know where she lays her head tonight, and that's the truth. I pray quick prayers that wherever she is, she's learning how bitter stolen bread tastes. That's between her and the God who still loves her greedy self. I released her name from my mouth a long time ago. And some of you, the ones whose messages make me pull over on the side of the road, asked the hardest question of all. Miss Lorraine, how did you forgive? I didn't start with them. I started with me. I forgave the Lorraine who missed every sign because she wanted to believe in family. I forgave the Lorraine who thought love meant swallowing hurt until it choked her. I forgave my body for every stretch mark they laughed at behind my back, because those marks are the map of where my babies grew. And when there was room in my heart that wasn't full of shame anymore, a little grace trickled in for the people who hurt me. Forgiveness didn't make what they did right. It just stopped letting what they did keep me wrong. So if you're sitting there tonight with a cousin-shaped wound, if somebody reached across blood and bed to take what was never theirs, if you're wondering whether speaking up will cost more than staying quiet, listen to a guidance counselor who finally learned her own worth. You are allowed to burn it down with truth if that's the only way to save what's yours. You are allowed to say, not my house. Not my children. Not my peace. You are allowed to stand on your own porch, coral dress and receipts and all, and remind the world who you became when they weren't looking. And you do not have to do it loud. Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is stay calm, gather her evidence, and let the screen speak for itself. 15 years ago I would have cried in the bathroom and let them keep the cabin to keep the peace. Today I dance in my kitchen with my babies, with Marcus humming off-key beside me, with the windows open and the music loud enough for the lake to hear. That's the revenge I kept. That's the healing I chose. So I'm going to ask you the question I always ask when we reach this part of the swing. If this had been your marriage, if this had been your cousin laughing in your bed, if this had been your safe place on the line, would you have done what I did? Would you have stayed quiet to keep the family pretty? Or would you have chosen truth, even when it scorched the earth? There's no wrong answer, sweet pea. There's only the answer that lets you look in the mirror and still recognize the woman staring back. Whatever you choose, choose it knowing you are stronger than the moment that tried to break you. And you are never, ever as alone as the dark wants you to believe. If you're carrying something heavy tonight, leave it here on this swing with me. I've got room, peach tea in the fridge, and a heart that's learned how to hold somebody else's hurt without adding it to my own. We'll sit a while. We'll let the crickets preach. And when you're ready, we'll take the next right step together. Until the next story. Take care of your heart, and keep dancing, even if nobody else sees. And if nobody told you today, I'm proud of you for still being soft after everything that tried to make you hard. Now tell me, sugar, what would you have done? I'll be right here in the comments, reading every word. Much love from the dock at Carter's Cove. Lorraine Denise Carter.